Have you ever noticed, who speaks the loudest in the room? It's almost always the person who feels the most insecure, the one who's trying to prove something, to be seen, to be heard, not because they hold power, but because they don't. Think about that for a moment. Why does noise often come from fear? Why does someone who is truly confident rarely need to raise their voice? Now picture the opposite. Someone who walks into the room quietly, they say very little. Yet everything about them commands attention. Their presence fills the space without a word. There's no chaos, no drama, just a calm force that shifts the entire atmosphere. That is power. Real power doesn't need to shout, it doesn't beg for attention, it doesn't seek validation. It's like gravity, invisible, yet everything in the room responds to it. In fact, the loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous. The most dangerous is often the quietest, not because they're hiding, but because they are watching, calculating, waiting. They have mastered the art of restraint. Think about history's greatest leaders, the deepest thinkers, the most respected men. They weren't always the loudest voices in the room. Take Mahatma Gandhi. He led a movement that shook empires, not with rage, not with noise, but with quiet strength and relentless patience. Or picture a skilled chess player, not rushing, not reacting, but waiting for the perfect moment to strike, knowing that sometimes silence is the most powerful play. This kind of silence, it isn't weakness, it's not fear, and it's not submission. It's a weapon, forged from discipline, sharpened by clarity, and strengthened through emotional control. Most people speak to release pressure, to calm anxiety, to avoid discomfort, but power listens. Power doesn't panic, it prepares. So ask yourself, how often do you speak just to fill the silence? How often do you reveal your emotions, your plans, your next move, too soon, simply because silence made you uncomfortable? Now imagine flipping that script, becoming the person who doesn't rush to respond, who waits, watches, reads the room, and when the time is right, moves. Imagine a presence so steady, so deliberate, that your silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. This isn't about being cold. It's not about becoming distant. It's about becoming deliberate, strategic, because silence, when chosen with intention, is not absence, it's dominance. True power doesn't perform, it doesn't react, it stands still, observing, and then, when the moment finally comes, it acts, not with noise, not with a whisper, but with a presence so clear, it cannot be ignored. Think about the times in your own life when waiting, instead of rushing, brought better results. Maybe you waited to reply to a difficult email, or paused before making a big decision, and found that patience was your greatest ally. So today, I invite you to embrace a new kind of strength. A strength not measured by how loudly you can shout, but by how firmly you can hold your ground, in silence. Raise your standards, not your voice. Speak with meaning, not just to fill space. Welcome the power of silence, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of the undefeated. Ask yourself, what could you achieve if you mastered the art of restraint? If you let your silence carry the weight of your strength, the room is waiting for you to walk in, quietly, confidently, powerfully. Have you ever noticed who speak? No wasted energy, no chaos, just clarity and results. Now, ask yourself, when was the last time you chose silence over reaction? When did you resist the urge to fill a moment with noise, and instead just observed? Because in those moments of stillness, you're conserving your energy, while others waste theirs, trying desperately to be heard. This level of emotional control, this discipline, it isn't easy. It's forged through discomfort, through failure, and through countless moments where you chose to hold your tongue, that when every instinct screamed to speak. But that is what makes you untouchable, the person who stays calm while others lose control. Owns the battlefield. So here's what I want you to take away today: your greatest strength isn't how loud you are, it's in how well you listen, how little you reveal, and how perfectly you choose your moment to act. Real power doesn't shout for attention, it exists quietly, with clarity and purpose. When you walk into any room, and your presence shifts the atmosphere, without saying a single word, you've already won. Master yourself before you try to master anything else. Silence your ego, detach from the noise around you, become the calm in the middle of the storm, because those who control their emotions control the perceptions of others. And those who control perception, they own the game before it even begins. So next time you feel the urge to react, pause, choose silence, choose power, and when you finally speak or act, make sure your words land like thunder, undeniable, sharp, and perfectly timed. Welcome to the power of silence, the power of the undefeated. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a situation you knew you had to end, but for some reason, you just kept waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right feeling, waiting for a sign that never came? That silence, that pause, at first, it felt peaceful, but over time, it turned heavy. Painful, exhausting. What if I told you, the real power isn't in waiting forever, it's in knowing exactly when to break the silence and act? Let's face it, the battlefield that truly matters isn't out there in the open, it's inside your mind, it's in your presence, your choices, your ability to end things decisively, cleanly, without drama. There's a profound difference between someone who holds power and someone who merely reacts out of fear or ego. The powerful, they don't drag things out, they close the chapter, quickly, firmly, without unnecessary noise. When confrontation becomes inevitable, don't play games, don't leave doors open for chaos to creep back in, because what you leave unfinished always comes back, like a shadow you can't shake. That unresolved conversation, that rival you spared, that toxic relationship you allowed to linger, they don't disappear, they fester beneath the surface, draining your energy, clouding your peace. Niccolo Machiavelli said it best: injuries must be inflicted once for all, so that they may not have to be repeated. Decisive action isn't cruelty, it's mercy in disguise. Ending something firmly is not about being ruthless, it's about respecting your own time, your energy, your peace of mind. Dragging out conflict doesn't make you noble, it makes you vulnerable. Think about it, in real life, in business, sometimes the smartest move is walking away from a deal that no longer serves you. You don't owe anyone an explanation, you don't owe a second chance, just a quiet, firm withdrawal that leaves the opposition powerless. Silence, in moments like these, cuts deeper than any insult. And in relationships, the same rule applies. When someone crosses your boundaries again and again, you don't owe them a dramatic exit, you owe yourself peace, and peace requires closure, not chaos. Here's the key that most people miss: when you decide to act, do it with finality. No grand speeches, no social media announcements, no passive-aggressive revenge, just one clean, decisive move that speaks louder than words ever could. And once it's done, don't look back, don't justify your choice, don't apologize for protecting your well-being. Real power doesn't need to announce itself, it moves forward, unbothered, unshaken. This isn't about cruelty, it's about discipline, indecision, is a leak. In your power, hesitation invites chaos. Your time, your energy, your focus, they are sacred. When you grasp this truth, your strategy becomes clear. Don't fight the same battle twice. Don't leave enemies wounded and vengeful. End it respectfully, decisively, once and for all. This isn't harshness, it's wisdom. If you can master this, balancing firmness with elegance, control with clarity, then you'll find you don't have to fight many battles at all. Most people will sense your authority so clearly that they won't even try to challenge you, because once you act, it's already too late for them. So here's my question to you: what battle have you been delaying? What silence have you been afraid to break? Today, commit to ending it, not with anger, but with strength, not with noise, but with quiet authority, because true power lies not in how loudly you fight, but in how decisively you close the door, and walk away. Own your peace, own your power, and remember this: the most powerful moments in life come when silence ends and action begins. Let me ask you something: have you ever been in a room where someone said nothing, and yet controlled everything? That's not coincidence, that's not luck, that is silent power. They talk too much, they reveal too much, they mistake your stillness for weakness. Until it's too late, think of a master chess player. He doesn't rush, he waits, he lets the opponent think they're winning, then makes one move that ends the game, or the negotiator who pauses just long enough for the other side to get nervous and speak first. That's not passivity, that's power disguised as patience. Power isn't always about confrontation, it's about control of your thoughts, your emotions, your timing. The world wants you loud, but the more noise you make, the more predictable you become. So here's what the powerful do: they observe, they calculate, they wait, and when the moment is right, they strike, not with chaos, but with clarity. So the next time someone tries to bait you into a reaction, don't take it, don't give them your energy, don't give them your center. Stay still, stay sharp, stay quiet, because silence is not the absence of power. It is the proof of it. You don't need to be seen to be respected. You don't need to be loud to be heard. The person who holds their tongue holds the high ground, and the one who masters silence and patience doesn't just win the battle, they own the battlefield. Power isn't always loud, and it's not always direct. Some of the most devastating power moves aren't made with fists or shouting, they're made in silence. They're made by reshaping the environment your enemy depends on. Because here's the brutal truth: you don't always have to confront someone to break them. Sometimes, the most effective strategy is to isolate them, not just from you, but from their resources, from their support, from their illusion of control. Because no one rises alone, and no one falls alone. They fall when you take the ground out from under them. You see, power doesn't always push forward, it surrounds, it infiltrates, quietly. It takes away options, one by one, until the target is trapped in a prison they never saw coming. Let me show you what this looks like. Imagine a workplace. Someone's constantly undermining you, challenging your role, trying to chip away at your influence. Now, the average person, they'd confront, they'd argue, they'd fight back, loudly. But that's not power, that's reaction. And reaction gives away position, and reaction gives away position. You step back, you watch, you say nothing, you start strengthening your relationships with their allies, subtly, steadily. You become useful, reliable, trusted. Meanwhile, they keep talking, keep posturing, keep burning bridges they didn't realize were already collapsing. And then, one day, They speak, but no one listens. They reach out, but no one responds. They fall, not because you struck them, but because you erased the ground they stood on. That's not manipulation, that's environmental control. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved when you cannot be both." But even more powerful is to make others fear the consequences of losing your favor without ever threatening them. That is the power they never see coming, because once a person feels isolated, doubt creeps in, paranoia multiplies. They question every glance, every silence, every move. And here's the irony: you didn't raise your voice, you didn't make a scene, you just made subtle shifts and let nature take its course. This isn't cruelty, it's precision, it's power, without noise. It's the art of removing oxygen, without leaving fingerprints. But don't mistake silence for inaction. Behind the curtain, you are always working, observing, calculating, positioning yourself where their collapse becomes inevitable, because true power doesn't just control people, it controls conditions, and the one who controls the conditions controls the outcome. So next time someone tries to challenge your position, don't rush into war, don't argue to be understood, don't try to win the crowd, win the environment, shift the room, redirect the loyalties, shape the silence. And then, let gravity do the rest, because power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives quietly, and by the time they notice, it's already too late. In a world that worships speed, where every second is a sprint, and urgency is mistaken for effectiveness, patience is a forgotten superpower. We live in an age addicted to instant answers, instant reactions, instant results. But the truth is, anything truly powerful, anything truly lasting, takes time, and those who understand that become dangerous. Niccolò Machiavelli once wrote that time is the greatest political weapon, and the Stoics, they believe that a person who controls their reaction, who waits, controls their fate. Think about it: what happens when you pause, when you don't react right away, when you let silence stretch just a little longer than expected? You gain perspective, you gather power, and more importantly, you give the other person a chance to show their weakness. See, in the heat of conflict, the impatient rush in, they swing wildly, they overcommit, they reveal their hand too soon. But the patient one, they wait, they observe, they listen, they understand that controlling time means controlling the outcome. The smart don't rush into battle, they let the field shape itself. They let their opponent become overconfident, let them believe you're retreating, faltering, or unsure, and that is when the tide turns. But what you're actually doing is positioning, you're conserving energy, collecting insight, sharpening your aim, you're giving the enemy just enough rope, and when the moment is right, when they've exposed their weakness, you act with precision, not force. Now, here's a question to sit with: are you acting because it's time to act, or because you're tired of waiting? That difference is everything. Urgency feels productive, but often it's a mask for fear, the fear of losing control, the fear of looking weak, the fear of not having all the answers. But the truly powerful aren't afraid to wait, they let others burn themselves out in the race, while they walk steadily toward the result. Impatience is loud, it stomps, it argues, it panics, but real power, it doesn't flinch, it doesn't chase, it endures. But patience is quiet and terrifying, because it means you're in control of yourself, of your emotions, of the battlefield, even when no one sees it yet. You don't need to force your way to victory, you let time deliver it for you. So the next time you feel pressure to react, to prove yourself, to respond right now, pause. And remember, the ruler of time does not run, they walk, and with each quiet step, they shape the future in their favor. Have you ever been backed into a corner, surrounded, no options, no obvious escape? Most people panic, they fight blindly, they throw everything they have, just to feel like they're doing something. But here's the truth, the smartest move in that moment is silence, not surrender, strategic silence, because retreat is not defeat, it's positioning. In chess, the grandmasters don't win by aggression alone, they win by making you overextend, by letting you believe you're in control, while they simply wait. It's the same in life. The strongest person in the room isn't always the loudest, it's the one who can remain still when everything around them is chaos. Why? Because silence creates pressure. It forces your opponent to guess, to doubt, to talk too much, and in that noise, they reveal everything. Let's say someone's attacking your reputation, they want a reaction, they're counting on it, but you don't give them what they want. You watch, you listen, you let them become bold, arrogant, reckless. And here's the fatal flaw in arrogance, it blinds. They stop checking their blind spots, they start making mistakes. Meanwhile, you're not reacting, you're calculating. You're learning their patterns, their weaknesses, their tells, and when the time comes, you don't respond with noise, you respond with precision. Patience is not passive, it's psychological warfare. The enemy who waits outlasts. Machiavelli once said, "He who controls time, controls power." Because time reveals, time destroys illusion, time exposes who's truly strong and who's just pretending. When you master the art of stillness, you control the rhythm of the game, you make your opponent dance to a tune only you can hear. In business, don't fight for attention, let your results speak. Let silence build anticipation. In conflict, don't argue, let them shout into the void, while you position yourself above the noise. In relationships, don't chase closure, be the closure. The absence of response becomes the message, because power doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers, sometimes it waits, and when it moves, it's too late for anyone to stop it. So the next time you feel trapped, pressured to react, don't breathe, wait, because the most powerful move is the one your opponent never sees coming. Silence isn't surrender, it's the prelude to domination. Let me ask you something, what's more terrifying, an enemy who screams and fights, or one who says nothing, disappears, and never returns? See, real power doesn't roar, it doesn't need to, it ends things, quietly, surgically, and without giving you a second chance. Imagine this, you're in a standoff, someone's been testing your patience, poking the bear, thinking you won't bite back. Most people would snap, they'd throw words like knives, try to win with noise, drama, confrontation. But not you, because you understand something they don't. The one who reacts is being controlled. The one who watches, waits, plans, they hold the real power. In the world of strategy, whether it's business, politics, or relationships, the loudest move isn't always the smartest. It's the final move that counts. And here's the truth no one wants to hear. Mercy invites return, closure prevents it. Think back to the last time you gave someone another chance. They crossed a line, you hesitated, you left the door cracked open, and they came back with more chaos, more destruction. Now contrast that with the kind of person who doesn't shout, they don't send a text, they don't post online, they just vanish. And by the time you realize it's over. The ground has already shifted beneath your feet. That is power, not the power to hurt, the power to end, completely, decisively, and without warning. Machiavelli once said, injuries must be inflicted all at once. So they will be forgotten quicker, because dragging out conflict doesn't make you noble, it makes you vulnerable. Every second you hesitate gives your opponent time to regroup. Every crack you leave open becomes a doorway for betrayal. So the strongest play, it's not anger, it's not revenge, it's clarity. When you're done, be done. No explanations, no grand exit, no lingering emotion, just one clean break that echoes longer than any scream. In the workplace, it looks like this. You walk away from a toxic partnership. No drama, no fireworks, just silence. And in that silence, your absence speaks louder than presence ever could. In relationships, it means cutting ties, not with rage, but with resolution, because peace doesn't come from confrontation, it comes from closure. Let me leave you with this: if you want real power, not power to impress, but power to protect, master these three things. 1. Your silence, because words can be traced, but silence leaves no fingerprints. 2. Your patience, because time exposes every mask. 3. Your finality, because the strongest message is the one you don't repeat. This is the game few play well, but those who do, they don't just win the battle, they end the war.